Nintendo is a very litigation-heavy company, and they are constantly looking to protect their IP, but now there has been another new lawsuit that in less than a week has been settled, and the developers of an emulator are forced to pay Nintendo millions of dollars and shut it down. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. Now, of course, this situation has been blowing up on social media. Tons of people have been talking about it because one day we're hearing about this lawsuit, the next we're hearing that this development group is shutting down. And while there are already a lot of updates to reference, I wanted to start off with this article that just talks about the initial situation from a few days ago. It says Nintendo has filed a lawsuit against Tropic Haze, the maker of the popular Yuzu Emulator that the Switch maker claims is facilitating piracy at a colossal scale. The federal lawsuit, filed in the District Court of Rhode Island and first reported by Stephen Totilo, is the company's most expansive and significant argument yet against emulation technology that it alleges turns general computing devices into tools for massive intellectual property infringement of Nintendo and others' copyrighted works, and Nintendo is asking the court to prevent the developers from working on promoting or distributing the Yuzu emulator and requesting significant financial damages under the DMCA. Now, obviously, Nintendo is an absolutely behemoth of a company at this point, and it really did not seem like they simply wanted money. They wanted this group to be shut down because, of course, yes, they are claiming that they are facilitating people with a way to pirate, millions of copies of games, but now that actually has been resolved. On the heels of the settlement with Nintendo, Yuzu's development team released a public statement talking about it, but a new court filing says that the developers behind the popular Switch emulator Yuzu have agreed to pay a $2.4 million settlement to Nintendo, and the not yet official final judgment suggests that the software itself is not long for this world. Now, it seems that the reason they are so mad and why they went so heavily against Tropical Haze is because Tears of the Kingdom had leaked 2 weeks before it hit street date, and they basically provided with their emulator a means to play a game that got leaked, and that instigated Nintendo into going after the emulator in fear that other new games would be leaked as well, because the people who got a hold of the game know there is a very easy way to access to play them, and this being Nintendo's current gen console made it a top priority to go after basically anyone affiliated with the situation. But we know that the people who actually had gotten their hands on Tears of the Kingdom early were never caught. I mean, what they are doing is they are attacking the creators of an emulator over someone else leaking the game. It's never been reported that Nintendo was able to, find the people or figure out even who leaked Tears of the Kingdom in the first place, so they've done, which is what they deem the next best thing, by attacking the emulator people use to play the games, even though, again, they had nothing to do with the game itself being leaked. It says, though, in a joint filing published, Nintendo of America and Tropic Haze LLC, the company behind Yuzu, now consent to judgment in favor of Nintendo and jointly move the court to enter monetary relief in the sum of $2.4 million in favor of Nintendo and against defendant. But it's also not that simple, because now Yuzu's development team has put out a statement confirming that the emulator is dead and will soon be completely scrubbed from the internet. We write today to inform you that Yuzu and Yuzu's support of sister emulator Citra are being discontinued effective immediately. Yuzu and its team have always been against piracy. We started the projects in good faith out of passion for Nintendo and its consoles and games, and we're not intending intending to cause harm, but we see now that because our projects can circumvent Nintendo's technological protection measures and allow users to play games outside of authorized hardware, they have led to extensive piracy, and in particular, we have been deeply disappointed when users have used our software to leak game content prior to its release and ruin the experience for legitimate purchasers and fans. And of course, like I mentioned, Nintendo is an extremely litigation-heavy company, so whenever they see an opportunity, they typically grasp for it. I mean, they even went after, a couple of years back in 2020, a group that had a go-kart company called Mari Karts, which obviously wouldn't negatively affect sales of their games, but it did not matter. Mari Kart, now branded as Street Kart, was ordered to pay Nintendo 50 million yen, or roughly 483,000 US dollars for violating IP rights, even though people were so happy that it existed and people probably did not negatively view Nintendo's games from that situation. Honestly, it might have even helped Nintendo, but it did not matter because they were not making money off of it. They said they violated IP rights, and at the end of the day, now it had to be completely rebranded to Street Karts. Now, in the talks of emulators, a lot of people are definitely against Nintendo for this, and if Nintendo's lawsuits continue to roll like this, there may not be a way for the community to preserve games anymore. And obviously, over the years, Nintendo themselves have done quite a bit to provide people with a way to access some older games through Nintendo Switch Online, so they themselves are of course using emulators, and they're only putting up games that they either own the intellectual property for or have licensed from the IP holder, and the games that are accessible through Switch Online are, of course, curated by Nintendo, but they don't offer you the ability to buy any game that you would want that they own or have access to. That is just not on the service. There is a massive library of games that are inaccessible, and just like with the virtual console games that are on the Wii and the Wii U, once the system is no longer supported and your system dies, you no longer have an avenue to use games that Nintendo either provided you with or you bought from them to run on that system. So your only recourse is to go to piracy, because they're not running a service like Steam where you buy a new computer and most of your games have been updated to run on the newest version of Windows. Once a Nintendo system is discontinued and yours no longer works, you don't have access to anything that they provided you with or that you paid for. So the only place to turn to play something that you originally paid for is piracy. And of course, you know, here's an example from 2018 when Nintendo started going heavily handed against ROM sites. And even though this article, again, from 2018 and around the time Nintendo started adding older games to Nintendo Switch Online, it's still relevant because it shows their attitude, which is still quite prevalent even today. It says Nintendo's aggressive approach to copyright protection is generating a huge amount of bad feeling within gaming circles, wrecking attempts to preserve game history and disconnecting itself from its most passionate fans. That's the view of many die-hard gamers who have spoken out after the company hit the owner of two websites, Love ROMs and Love Retro, with a lawsuit which has effectively forced them to shut down. ROMs are, of course, a way that people do end up enjoying older games and games from the past that are no longer easily accessible or accessible at a reasonable price like MSRP. And to top that off, if you go on something like eBay, there are insane price tags for games that really don't deserve them. I mean, look at the Nintendo DS Pokemon games, right? Look at something like Heart Gold, Black, White. Those games are $100 just the cart, never mind in box. I mean, there are some insane prices for games these days, and I completely understand Nintendo wanting to protect themselves and especially protect games that go on their newer hardware, but at the same time, there's no way to buy older games. And again, like I just mentioned with the Nintendo DS, look at this, Wii U and Nintendo 3D eShop discontinuation Q&A. They discontinued it around this time last year, and people were furious. People were so upset because the Wii U and the Nintendo 3DS are really not even that old, but they just, of course, want to push people into playing the Nintendo Switch, and I get it, right? They need to make money. They want people to buy their new console, and there have been a lot of rumors floating around about a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro, lots of different Switch rumors, but at the same time, they are pushing people towards emulation when they are shutting down their older systems shops. You are no longer able to buy those games for a decent price, for a fair price, but this conversation is probably not going to die down anytime soon. Nintendo's aggressive approach to copyright protection is, of course, generating a huge amount of controversy within gaming circles, wrecking attempts to preserve game history and disconnecting itself from the most passionate of fans. It will be interesting to see if Yuzu makes any other statements. I don't think that they will. I think that this will be the end, but it just goes to show that Nintendo is still continuing down the path of heavy litigation when it comes to emulators. And I will be keeping my eye on this situation, but for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.